I never thought selling my yacht would end with flashing lights, police cars, and the entire neighborhood watching from their porches. It was supposed to be simple: sign the papers, shake hands, and close a chapter of my life. But in Clearwater Estates, nothing was ever simple. Not when Olivia Whitmore was involved. Most people called her Karen, and honestly, she earned the title. She ran our HOA like a dictatorship disguised as community service. The kind of woman who measured lawns with a ruler and once fined a neighbor for using non-regulation Christmas lights. Her favorite weapon wasn't a clipboard, it was control. So when she found out I was selling my yacht, my pride and joy, $2.5 million beauty named Justice, she completely lost it. Before I tell you how it all spiraled out of control, I want to know something. Have you ever had a neighbor who thought they owned the whole street? The kind of person who turns every rule into a power trip? Tell me about it. I've got a feeling this story might sound familiar. Now, back to the madness. It started on a calm afternoon. The sun glinted off the lake, and the yacht rocked gently against the dock. A broker from Miami had come to finalize the sale. Everything was smooth, paperwork ready, handshake done. I could almost feel the weight lifting off my shoulders until I saw her pink blazer marching down the path like a siren of doom. Karen stormed toward us, phone in hand, face burning red. "Stop! This transaction is illegal," she shouted, waving her phone like a badge. "You can't sell property that belongs to the HOA." The broker blinked at me, confused. I sighed. "It's my yacht, Karen. My dock. My land." But she was already dialing 911. Within minutes, police cruisers appeared, lights flashing against the calm surface of the water. Neighbors gathered, whispering, phones out. I stood there in disbelief as Karen pointed at me like she'd just uncovered a criminal empire. "That man," she yelled, "is laundering money through illegal yacht sales on HOA property." I almost laughed, but the scene was too absurd to be funny. One of the officers, Barnes, tried to calm her. "Ma'am, can you explain exactly what's being sold?" Karen folded her arms, smug. "The dock, the yacht, everything. This belongs to the HOA." I reached into my truck and pulled out a thick folder. I've lived here long enough to know that in this neighborhood, you survive by keeping receipts. "Actually," I said, "Parcel 34B is privately owned. Built in 1998, before the HOA even existed. I got the land survey, the title deed, everything." Barnes flipped through the documents while his partner took photos. After a minute, he looked up. "Looks pretty clear to me, Mr. Thompson. You're within your rights." Karen's face turned crimson. "No crime? Are you blind? He's selling a yacht worth millions. Where do you think that money's going?" "Offshore accounts." Barnes sighed. "Ma'am, we can't arrest someone because they're rich." That only made her angrier. She whipped out her phone again and started live streaming to the HOA Facebook group. "Attention residents," she announced dramatically. "A serious financial crime is happening right now on our property. But don't worry, justice will be served." My phone started buzzing with messages from neighbors. My wife texted, "What on earth did you do now?" When the police finally left, Karen marched right up to me, heels stabbing the dock with every step. "You think you're clever, Brian? Selling your fancy boat and hiding behind paperwork? You're not above the rules." "Olivia," I said calmly, "I followed every rule in that 120-page handbook you dropped at my door last Christmas. Selling my yacht isn't against any of them." She glared at me. "We'll see about that." And just like that, she stormed off, muttering something about calling the district attorney. I should have laughed it off, but something about her reaction felt off. Too personal. Why did she care so much about a private sale? Why was she acting like my transaction threatened her? That night, my broker emailed me. "Hey Brian, strange thing. The HOA president contacted the buyer and said the sale is under federal review. He's nervous and wants to delay." I felt my stomach twist. She wasn't just being dramatic. She was interfering with a legal sale. That could cost me hundreds of thousands. I sat at my desk, pulled out the safe, and opened the old HOA file I've been keeping for years. Every fee, every special assessment, every shady receipt. That's when I saw it. A $4,800 dock renovation fund from 3 years ago, supposedly used for lighting and security. Except there'd never been any renovation. The check had been made out to a company called Blue Harbor Services, LLC. Curious, I searched it online. A P.O. box, no website, and a registered agent? Daniel Whitmore, Karen's husband. My blood ran cold. Suddenly, everything clicked. Her obsession with control, the paranoia about money, the endless budget issues. She wasn't protecting the HOA. She was protecting her scam. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. He replied almost instantly. This looks bad for her, but you'll need more proof. Keep digging. And so I did. Quietly. I collected everything. Old budgets, screenshots of transactions, posts from the HOA group bragging about fundraisers. Meanwhile, Karen launched a full-blown smear campaign. She printed flyers accusing me of financial misconduct and hand-delivered them to every doorstep. At the next HOA meeting, she stood at the podium, dripping venom. Mr. Thompson's yacht sale has raised serious ethical concerns, she said. We must protect our community from suspicious financial behavior. I raised my hand. Are you implying I'm a criminal, Olivia? She smirked. If the shoe fits. The room murmured. For the first time, I saw people hesitate, doubt flickering in their eyes. One neighbor, Greg, spoke up. Karen, maybe you're going too far. Brian's lived here for a decade. He's never missed a payment. Maybe you should show some transparency. That shut her up briefly, but it planted a seed. After the meeting, Greg caught up with me. She's been skimming HOA funds for years, he whispered. My cousin used to do maintenance here. She never paid him, said the budget was frozen. Then she bought a new Mercedes. He handed me a flash drive. You didn't get this from me. That night, I plugged it in. Inside were scanned receipts, fake invoices, duplicate payments, all tied to Blue Harbor Services. Same handwriting, same signature. By midnight, I'd compiled a 20-page document. Fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. Karen had tried to ruin me with lies, but she just handed me the rope to hang her empire. As I leaned back, staring at the dark water outside my window, I whispered, You called 911 on the wrong guy, Olivia. Because this time, justice wasn't just the name of my yacht. It was coming for her. The morning after my discovery, the lake looked calm, too calm. That kind of deceptive stillness you see right before a storm. I barely slept. My mind kept replaying Karen's face, her voice echoing through the HOA meeting like some self-appointed judge of morality. Only now I knew the truth. She wasn't a guardian of the community. She was a thief hiding behind bylaws and pastel sweaters. I called my lawyer, David Holbrook, a no-nonsense maritime attorney who used to work for the State Tax Bureau. When I told him what I'd found, he gave a low whistle. Brian, this isn't just petty HOA corruption, he said. If she's moving community funds into a company her husband owns, that's embezzlement and fraud. How about evidence? I said, my voice tight. Invoices, duplicate payments, checks, everything. Then bring it all, he said. And Brian? Be ready. People like her don't go down quietly. He wasn't wrong. By noon, I walked into his downtown office, a manila folder under my arm, thick enough to make a judge raise an eyebrow. David spread the papers across his desk like chess pieces. All right, he said, tapping a pen thoughtfully. First, we protect you. I'll send a formal cease and desist letter to the HOA demanding they retract any public accusations. Then, we'll file for a financial transparency audit. Every HOA that manages community funds is required to submit annual reports to the county. If she skipped that step, she's toast. I finished. He smiled. Exactly. But when I left his office that day, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's web ran deeper than I realized. That evening, my inbox pinged with an anonymous message. You don't know me, but I used to work for Clearwater HOA maintenance. Watch your back. Karen's hiding things you wouldn't believe. She's got friends at City Hall. No name, no signature, just a warning that made my blood run cold. Friends at City Hall. If that was true, this wasn't just a neighborhood squabble anymore. I stayed up late that night, digging through public records, property grants, and city databases. Then, at 2 in the morning, I found it. A city infrastructure grant worth $1.2 million allocated to Clearwater Estates 2 years ago for dock and marina upgrades. Except no upgrades had ever happened. The contractor listed? Blue Harbor Services, LLC. The same fake company. The same P.O. box. The same name, Daniel Whitmore. I sat back, staring at the screen in disbelief.
It was already
She wasn't just stealing
I needed the
HOA
money.
dues.
You left me no choice.
She was funneling government grant money. When I showed the documents to David the next morning, he went silent. Then he said, "Brian, this is bigger than I thought. You've stumbled onto federal territory." "Then let's bring the feds in," I said. He nodded slowly. "We will. But first, we'll give her just enough rope to hang herself." That same afternoon, David sent the formal notices to the HOA board. Within hours, my phone rang. It was her. Karen's voice crackled through the line, sharp, trembling with fury. "You think you could drag my name through the mud, Brian? You'll regret this." I stayed calm. "I'm just asking for receipts, Olivia. If everything's above board, there's nothing to hide." "I don't owe you anything," she snapped and hung up. 2 hours later, I found a letter in my mailbox. An HOA fine, $1,500 for disruptive behavior and community defamation. Classic Karen move. That night, Greg texted me from the clubhouse. "She's panicking, screaming about traitors on the board. Try to get you banned from the docks." I replied, "Let her try. Every word she says is evidence." But I had no idea how far she was willing to go. By Friday, the situation had exploded. Karen filed a formal complaint with the county assessor, accusing me of illegal construction. She even attached fake photos and measurements claiming my dock extended beyond property lines. Fortunately, the county clerk, Linda, an old friend, called me directly. "Brian, what's going on? Your HOA president just sent me a 20-page complaint accusing you of coastal encroachment." I sighed. "Let her dig her own grave, Linda. I've got the permits and the proof." Linda chuckled. "You might want to brace yourself." When I checked the HOA file, I noticed something strange. They haven't filed any annual audits in 3 years. That's a federal compliance issue. That's when it hit me. I wasn't the one under investigation anymore. She was. By Monday morning, David and I had filed a whistleblower report with the State Financial Bureau. We attached everything: the fraudulent invoices, the missing audits, and the suspicious grant trail. 2 days later, my phone buzzed again, this time from a blocked number. "Mr. Thompson, this is Agent Laura Jensen with the State Financial Bureau. Your report matches several other complaints we've received from nearby neighborhoods. There's a pattern here. HOAs funneling city funds through shell companies. Your evidence could crack this open." My pulse quickened. "So what do you need from me?" "Cooperation," she said, "and silence. Keep collecting whatever you can, but don't let her know you're working with us. Let her think she's winning." I agreed. A few days later, the HOA announced a community dock cleanup day. I knew it was a PR stunt. Karen's attempt to appear squeaky clean for the local newspaper she'd invited. Still, I showed up. She greeted me with that plastic smile, her voice syrupy sweet for the cameras. "Glad to see you contributing again, Brian," she said, handing me a pair of gloves. I forced a grin. "Just doing my part, Madam President." But behind that smile, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. Her assistant kept whispering to her, pointing toward a stack of boxes near the clubhouse door. That night, Greg texted again. She's shredding documents. I saw her loading boxes into her car. My stomach dropped. I called Agent Jensen immediately. Within hours, she'd secured a court order to preserve the HOA's financial records. By sunrise, county officers arrived at the clubhouse with the warrant. Karen tried to stop them at the door. "You can't come in here without authorization." One officer held up the paperwork. "Ma'am, this is authorization." They carried out boxes of files, hard drives, laptops, everything. Karen stood there trembling, shouting at them, at me, at anyone who'd listen. "You did this," she screamed later that afternoon, storming on my driveway. "You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone? You're finished, Brian." I folded my arms. "You called 911 on me for selling my own yacht. Turns out you're the one committing crimes." Her face drained of color. You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think I do," I said quietly. "And so does the State Financial Bureau." She didn't reply. For the first time, she had no comeback. 3 days later, I got another call, this time from Agent Jensen. "Brian," she said, "we found irregular transactions linked to multiple accounts. The FBI is stepping in. This could become a full-scale federal investigation." I looked out across the lake, where the water shimmered in the setting sun. The same water where Karen had once screamed at me about community property. Now it was the scene of her undoing. "You really think they'll go after her?" I asked. "Oh, they already have," Jensen said. "Get ready. Things are about to get loud." And she was right. Because a week later, Clearwater Estates woke up to flashing lights, black SUVs, and bold yellow letters, FBI. When I opened my blinds that gray Thursday morning, I thought the storm was finally over. I'd filed a report, handed over every document, and done everything by the book. For the first time in weeks, I poured a cup of coffee without feeling like I was being watched. The lake outside my window was perfectly still, a mirror of peace. But peace, I've learned, is fragile. Because at 9:12 a.m., that calm shattered under the sound of engines. 3 black SUVs rolled slowly down the lakefront road, their windows tinted, tires crunching on the gravel. Even from my porch, I could see the gold letters across their jackets when they stepped out. FBI. They didn't move with hesitation or drama, just quiet purpose, a precision that made the air feel heavy. Within minutes, the HOA clubhouse was surrounded. Across the street, neighbors began spilling onto their lawns, clutching mugs of coffee, whispering like we'd just stumbled into a live episode of a crime show. Someone asked, "Is the HOA being raided?" Another replied, "About time." I set my cup down and walked out to the sidewalk, my heart thudding. From the crowd's edge, I spotted her, Karen, in full panic mode. She was wearing that pink blazer again, mascara streaking down her cheeks as she waved her arms at one of the agents. "Excuse me, you can't just storm into my office like this," she shouted. "I'm the HOA president." The lead agent, a tall man with a clipboard, didn't even flinch. "Ma'am, you're not under arrest yet, but we'll need you to stay available for questioning." The word yet hit her like a slap. She turned, scanning the crowd, and when her eyes met mine, her glare could have burned through glass. I raised my coffee mug slightly, not as mockery, just acknowledgement. That didn't help. By noon, the clubhouse doors were wide open, and the agents carried out box after box of files, laptops, even a desktop computer tower, each one labeled with bright evidence tags. Karen tried to regain control, standing at the top of the clubhouse steps like a dethroned queen addressing her confused subjects. "Everyone, please remain calm," she said, voice trembling but loud enough for the cameras. "This is all just a clerical misunderstanding. The HOA's records are perfectly fine." Someone whispered from the crowd, A clerical error worth $1 million? Even Greg couldn't resist. "Hey, Karen," he called out. "Next time, balance your books before buying a second vacation home." Laughter rippled through the onlookers. Karen's face twitched, but she didn't respond. She just stood there, smaller than I'd ever seen her. For years, she'd barked orders and sent fines like bullets. Now she looked like someone realizing her power had finally run out. That evening, my phone rang again. "Agent Jensen." "Brian," she said, "the documents you provided were key. We found offshore transfers linked to Blue Harbor Services. There's enough evidence for a full-scale federal audit." I exhaled slowly. "So this is really happening." "It's happening," she confirmed. "But don't let your guard down. People like her, they don't go quietly." And Jensen was right again. Karen wasn't done. The very next morning, every mailbox in Clearwater Estates had a glossy newsletter inside. On the front page was a photo of Karen smiling confidently, standing in front of the very clubhouse that had been raided hours earlier. The headline read, "HOA President Addresses False Allegations. Bitter Neighbors' Lies Debunked." Inside was an entire article twisting the truth. According to her, the raid was a routine inspection. I was portrayed as a disgruntled homeowner with a vendetta. She even claimed I was under investigation for defamation. I almost laughed out loud. Desperation had a way of smelling strong, and this reeked of fear. But some neighbors still weren't sure what to believe. HOA politics had always been confusing. People were used to taking her word as gospel. I realized I needed something undeniable. So, that weekend, I decided to give them the truth, projected 10 feet wide. I called it Community Transparency Night. I set up a projector on my driveway, invited every resident, and offered free pizza and sodas. Curiosity did the rest. Dozens showed up, some skeptical, others just wanting entertainment. Greg helped me set up the chairs. When everyone settled, I stepped forward. "Thanks for coming," I began. "I'm not here to sling accusations. I'm here to show you facts." I clicked the remote. On the screen appeared scanned HOA checks made out to Blue Harbor Services LLC, each signed by Karen herself. Then came the bank statements, transfers to offshore accounts. Then an internal email where she told her assistant to move the remaining grant funds before the audit. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One woman whispered, "Oh my God, she really did it." Another man stood, shaking his head. I trusted her. Karen wasn't there. But if she'd been, I imagine her face would have turned the same shade as her blazer. When the final slide appeared, a copy of the $1.2 million city grant that vanished without a trace, Greg raised his voice. "I move that we suspend the entire HOA board pending investigation." Dozens of voices echoed, seconded. We took a vote right there, under the soft glow of the projector light. Unanimous. Karen was officially out. But peace still wouldn't come easily. Because 2 days later, I received another anonymous email. This time, not a warning, evidence. Attached was a PDF of messages between Karen and a city official named Howard Briggs, the same man who'd approved the HOA's grant. "Keep the paperwork tight this time. Last transfer raised red flags. You'll get your cut once the state clears the inspection. Bribery? Clear as daylight." I forwarded everything to Jensen immediately. Her reply came almost instantly. "You just connected the dots. Expect action soon." And soon came faster than I expected. 2 mornings later, Clearwater Estates woke up to chaos. Multiple black SUVs, unmarked sedans, a white van marked Federal Financial Crimes Division. Agents surrounded Karen's home. Cameras from local news crews rolled as they led her out in handcuffs, her face twisted in disbelief. "You don't understand," she screamed. "I'm innocent. He set me up. He's behind all of this." She meant me. The agents didn't even acknowledge her. One read her rights in a monotone voice as flashbulbs popped. Greg leaned over my fence, smirking. "Well," he said, "guess she finally got her 15 minutes of fame." I chuckled softly. She always did love the spotlight. For the first time in years, Clearwater Estates felt light. Neighbors laughed again. Kids played by the lake. The air itself seemed to breathe. Over the next few days, the story exploded across local news. HOA president arrested in $1.2 million fraud and bribery scandal. Federal agents probe city grant scheme. The story went viral. HOA reform forums shared it nationwide. And then, just when I thought the chaos was over, more black SUVs appeared. This time, they weren't here for Karen. They were here for everyone else connected to her. I thought Karen's arrest was the end of it. I really did. After she was taken away in handcuffs, the neighborhood finally exhaled. The lake was quiet again. The endless HOA notices stopped. No one was fined for leaving trash cans out or painting their shutters the wrong shade of beige. For the first time in years, Clearwater Estates felt free. But peace doesn't always mean closure. Sometimes it's just the calm between storms. 3 days later, I learned that the hard way. At exactly 9:14 a.m., I heard the low hum of engines, deep, synchronized, unmistakably official. I stepped outside, coffee in hand, just in time to see 6 black SUVs and a white van marked IRS. Criminal Investigation Division pulling into the neighborhood. Behind them, 2 sheriff cruisers followed by another unmarked car. I didn't even bother asking what was happening. I already knew. The feds were back. Karen was gone, but her web was still intact. Agents moved fast, surrounding the HOA clubhouse and the Whitmore's mansion. They weren't here to ask questions. They were here to clean house. Neighbors came out in clusters, pretending to walk their dogs while stealing glances. Some filmed on their phones. Others whispered like gossip reporters. And then I saw him, Daniel Whitmore, Karen's husband, standing in his driveway like a man who thought he could charm his way out of a federal investigation. He wore a pastel polo, gold watch gleaming in the sun, the picture of smug confidence. When the lead agent approached, Daniel puffed out his chest. "Excuse me, this is private property. You can't just barge in here." The agent calmly held up a plastic sleeve. "Search warrant, signed by a federal judge." "Step aside, sir." Daniel blinked, color draining from his face. "Search warrant for what?" "Embezzlement, wire fraud, and misuse of federal funds." That did it. He stepped back without another word. By 9:30, agents had broken open the clubhouse's back office, a room Karen had always called her administrative suite. Inside, they found cash boxes, hard drives, and a folder labeled Project Marina Expansion. The word sent a chill through me. I'd seen that name before. It was on the old grant forms, the ones tied to the missing $1.2 million. I watched from the sidewalk as agents hauled everything out, snapping photos, tagging evidence. One of them spoke into a radio. "We've confirmed multiple transfers to offshore accounts. Total exposure, over $4 million. $4 million. My stomach turned. Karen hadn't just been greedy. She'd been part of something far bigger than anyone imagined. At 10 a.m., 2 agents walked up my driveway. "Mr. Thompson," one said, flashing his badge. "I'm Agent Cooper, FBI Financial Crimes. This is Agent Riley from the IRS." I nodded. "You guys are early." Cooper smiled faintly. "We've been waiting for this one. You might want to see what we found." They led me into the clubhouse. The air inside was thick with dust and tension. Papers scattered, drawers forced open, monitors glowing with spreadsheets and transaction logs. Riley pointed to a screen. Rows of numbers blinked in green, payments, invoices, dates. "These are records from 10 different HOAs across the county," she explained. all funneling money into two shell companies, Blue Harbor Services and Lakeside Property Consulting. Same pattern, small monthly transfers to avoid detection. Total, $4.3 million. My eyes widened. So Clearwater wasn't the only one. Cooper shook his head. Not even close. Your HOA was just the biggest contributor, which makes you our key witness. I let out a low whistle. So Karen was just the tip of the iceberg. Exactly, Cooper said. And thanks to your documents, we've got the proof we needed. Outside, the agents were sealing evidence boxes and photographing the grounds. For a moment, it almost looked like a crime movie, except it wasn't fiction. Then chaos hit. At 11:47 a.m., Daniel tried to run. He jumped into his white Mercedes SUV, slammed it into reverse, and tore down the road toward the exit. Tires screeched, gravel flew, and neighbors screamed. For a second, I thought he might actually make it, but two sheriff cars blocked him in at the gate. The crunch of metal echoed across the lake. Agents swarmed, shouting, "Hands up! Step out of the vehicle!" Daniel stumbled out, hands trembling. "I didn't do anything. It was all her idea." One of the agents said dryly, "You can tell that to the judge." They cuffed him right there on Clearwater Drive, with half the neighborhood filming on their phones. I swear, one teenager was doing a TikTok dance in the background. Poetic in the most ridiculous way. By late afternoon, the entire HOA board was under investigation. Agents carried box after box of documents out of the clubhouse. The local news crew had shown up by then, interviewing anyone who'd talk. Greg, of course, couldn't resist. "Yeah, I always knew something was off," he said to the camera. "Karen fined me once for parking too close to the curb. Turns out she was stealing millions. Go figure." The reporter turned to me next. "Mr. Thompson, as the homeowner who first reported the irregularities, how does it feel to see this unfold?" I looked out toward the lake where the sunlight danced on the ripples. "I didn't expect justice to arrive in black SUVs," I said slowly. "But I'll take it." That line made the evening news. When night fell, I couldn't sleep. Even though the chaos was over, my mind replayed it all. The shouting, the flashing lights, the surreal image of my quiet neighborhood turned into a federal crime scene. I went for a walk down to the dock. The moon reflected off the calm water. The lake, at least, still felt honest. That's where I found Agent Jensen waiting. "Can't sleep either?" she asked, stepping out of the shadows, her badge catching the light. "Too much adrenaline," I admitted. She stood beside me, looking out at the water. "You should know, this case will make headlines for a while. Karen and her husband are facing multiple charges: fraud, bribery, racketeering. But it doesn't end here, does it?" I asked quietly. She shook her head. "No, we've found connections between their shell companies and two other HOAs in Tampa and Tallahassee. Same accounts, same names. We think this is an organized network. Property managers, city officials, even contractors." I stared at the dark water. So all this started because she called 911 on a yacht sale. Jensen smiled faintly. "Funny how justice works, isn't it? You could have ignored her, you know." "Oh, I tried," I said with a dry laugh. "But Karen never stopped. Not until someone stopped her." Jensen nodded. "Well, consider her stopped." The next morning, I received a letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office thanking me for my cooperation. Inside was confirmation that my property, the dock and adjoining land, had been officially cleared of all claims. I pinned that letter above my desk, right next to a photo of my yacht. Underneath, I wrote one sentence: "When someone calls 911 on you, make sure justice calls them back." Clearwater Estates would never be the same, but neither would I. I thought the story was over. But a week later, a woman in a silver sedan pulled up beside me while I was walking my dog. She rolled down her window, nervous eyes, trembling hands. "Brian," she said quietly, You don't understand what you've started. It was Elaine Whitmore, Karen's sister. I frowned. Elaine, your sister stole over $1 million. The FBI understands perfectly well. She shook her head. You think she did this alone? She was taking orders from people way above her. People who don't want their names in court filings. Then maybe, I said, they shouldn't have funded fake renovations. Elaine's face went pale. Just be careful, she whispered. Karen wasn't the mastermind, only the face. And then she drove away. Her words haunted me the rest of the night. Because deep down, I knew she was right. The Whitmores might have fallen, but the people pulling the strings were still out there. And that's where the next chapter began. The week after Elaine Whitmore warned me, Clearwater Estates felt like a ghost town wearing a smile. The yellow tape was gone, the reporters had moved on, and the lake once again looked picture perfect. Yet every ripple in that water reminded me of the truth. Peace in this place had never lasted for long. Karen and Daniel were in custody. The HOA board had been dissolved, but their shadow lingered over every porch and picket fence. People still whispered her name like it might summon a fine. Then, out of nowhere, an envelope arrived. No return address, just my name typed neatly across the front. Inside was a single flash drive and a note written in block letters. You didn't uncover everything. Look deeper into the grant files. No signature, no hint of who sent it. I should have ignored it. I told myself I would. But curiosity is a stubborn thing. That night, I plugged the drive in my laptop. Most of the files were routine, budgets, memos, scan permits. But buried deep was a folder marked pending. Inside was a document titled Project Marina Expansion Phase 2. Approved funding, $300,000. Contractor, Blue Harbor Services, LLC. Co-signed by Howard Briggs and Councilwoman Lydia Barrett. My stomach tightened. Lydia Barrett, the same county official who'd stood on stage during the press conference praising the FBI for bringing integrity back to our community. She'd even shaken my hand. So that was it. The rut didn't stop at Karen. It climbed higher, right into City Hall. I called Agent Jensen first thing the next morning. Laura, I know you said the case was over. I began, but it's not. You need to see this. She sounded tired at first, skeptical. Brian, we've closed the file. Karen's been sentenced. Briggs is awaiting trial. What could possibly? Then explain. I cut in. Why a sitting councilwoman is co-signing the next phase of a project under a fake company you already proved doesn't exist. There was a pause, then a sharp inhale. Send me everything. Now, by afternoon, she was on my doorstep, her usual calm replaced with urgency. You were right, she said quietly, handing me a folder. The council approved a new infrastructure budget last month. $3 million earmarked for marina restorations. Blue Harbor's been re-registered under a new tax ID. Same owner, new alias, Briggs's cousin. I stared at her. So they're rebuilding the scam from inside the system. Jensen nodded grimly. Corruption never dies, Brian. It just changes uniforms. That night, I sat on my porch staring at the lake, the reflection of the moon slicing through the black water like a blade. After everything, they were still at it, still convinced no one would notice. But I noticed. The next morning, I met Greg at the diner. He looked up from his pancakes as I slid the printed document across the table. He squinted. Lydia Barrett? You're kidding. She was shaking your hand at the festival 2 weeks ago. I know, I said. She called me a model citizen. Meanwhile, she was already signing the next scam. Greg whistled. So what's the move this time? Another round with the feds. Yeah, I said, but I'm not sitting it out. The public deserves to know before she buries this under paperwork. A week later, the local paper ran my anonymous tip under the headline. Councilwoman linked to second wave of HOA grant fraud. The story caught fire. Reporters camped outside City Hall. Barrett went on live television, denying everything and calling it a baseless conspiracy from a disgruntled homeowner. That disgruntled homeowner was me. But her denial didn't last long. 2 days later, a clerk from the city finance office came forward, claiming she'd been ordered to backdate documents for the same project. Emails surfaced linking Barrett directly to Briggs before his arrest. When Jensen called me that night, I could hear the grin in her voice. "Congratulations, Brian. You just helped bring down a sitting council member." I laughed, half disbelief, half exhaustion. "I'm not sure whether to feel proud or tired." "Both," she said. "You've become a legend in our office." "Don't start that." I chuckled. "I'm just a guy who wanted to sell a yacht." The fallout was immediate. The mayor held a press conference promising sweeping reform in HOA oversight laws. Federal investigators widened the probe statewide. For once, Clearwater Estates wasn't the scandal. It was the example of redemption. Neighbors I barely knew stopped by to thank me. Someone left cookies on my porch. Another slipped a note under my door that read, "Because of you, my HOA voted to audit its own books." I didn't want fame. I wanted quiet. So one morning before sunrise, I took my new boat, Justice II, out onto the water. The mist hung low, the surface glassy and perfect. For the first time in years, the hum of the motor was the only sound I needed. I thought about everything Karen had cost me. Months of stress, sleepless nights, the feeling that truth didn't matter. But she'd also given me something I hadn't expected: perspective. Before all this, I thought peace came from comfort. Now I knew better. Peace comes from honesty, from standing your ground when it's easier to look away. That evening, the neighborhood gathered for one last meeting by the lake. We'd voted to retire the name Clearwater Estates. Too tainted, too haunted. As twilight deepened, I pulled the cloth off a new wooden sign carved from reclaimed oak. Clearwater Haven, founded on truth. The crowd erupted in applause. Some people even wiped tears from their eyes. Today, I said, we close the book on the past, not by forgetting it, but by learning from it. We all lived through something ugly, but out of that ugliness, we built something honest. Then I smiled. And if anyone's thinking about running another scam on this lake, just remember what happened to the last HOA president who tried. Laughter rolled across the water, light and free. Later that night, I sat on my porch with a glass of whiskey, watching the new sign's reflection shimmer on the lake. My phone buzzed. A text from Jensen. "Case closed. For real this time. Drinks on me the next time you're in Tampa." I typed back, "Deal." A minute later, another message popped up. "Make it on a yacht this time." I smiled. The lake was calm again. The stars steady. Karen's 911 call, the one meant to destroy me, had unraveled an entire system of corruption. It was poetic, really. As I watched the moonlight glint off the water, I whispered, "Justice sails slow, but it always finds the shore." If there's one thing this journey taught me, it's that truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to endure. Karen screamed louder than anyone, waving rules and threats like weapons. But her noise couldn't drown out the facts. Integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about standing firm when everyone else turns away. About choosing what's right over what's easy, even if it means standing alone. So if you ever find yourself up against power, an unfair boss, a crooked board, a bully who hides behind rules, remember this: every tyrant eventually meets their mirror. And sometimes that mirror looks a lot like one stubborn homeowner who simply refused to back down.